This was Saturday afternoon, about 5 minutes after 5. And at first I didn't think it was George because it said George Johnson. So I went on with my sewing. And then about 3 or 4 minutes later, they said it was George Jackson, one of the so-called Soledad brothers. Now, nobody ever bothered to call me and tell me that he was dead. And it's, well, for the past 10 or 11 years, I've expected to hear that he was dead anyway. So, although the shock was there from the radio, I still expected to hear it someday, but not from the radio.
Your son died is fairly well known. Do you believe that? Do you disbelieve that? And do you have any other possibilities? What do you think really?
No, I don't believe that because I don't think my son was mad, and I don't think he was an idiot. And I don't think that he would do the things that they said he did. You know, these people have for years gotten away with saying anything that they want to say because they have absolute power over those men. Those men can't even sneeze unless they want them to. They can say anything that they want to say, and we have to take it. You know that. Did they let any of you go in there and find out and talk to the people what happened? You only took their word for what happened. And that's the way it's always been.
What do you think happened?
I think they expected me to go and sit in the corner and cry and not really look at George. But I did. I looked at him. I saw everything that happened to him. He was shot more than once. In fact, his body was mutilated. George was a fine-looking man. But you wouldn't have been able to recognize him after they got through with him. It seemed as if they just did things to him for a vengeance, you know. And then when I talked on the phone to him about it at San Quentin, they said everybody was glad he was dead. And you could tell that they were glad for what they did to his body.
You are free to change whatever you hear into the lies that you see. We have no misconception about how black people are treated in the penal institutions of this country. There's a lady that sits beside me who has firsthand knowledge of the way black people are treated in the penal institutions of this country. We are informed that press coverage...
I heard about George's death on the radio. I think that happened. I don't know exactly what happened, but I do know that the guards were out to get him. I know that there was one guard there that treated him very well because he told me, this man has kept me alive since they returned me to San Quentin. And unfortunately, I can't remember his name.
Mr. Jackson, there was supposedly a lawyer.
That since we can't get justice from the state of California and we can't get justice from America in general, that we need somebody to intercede for us to see that some justice is done in this country concerning the murder of my son and the murder of so many other men in prison. And it's basically that.
Mrs. Jackson, say people in New York wanted to
sacrificing white lives along with black lives if it achieves what they're after. In other words, no black voice can get too loud in this country. It's always silenced. The minute somebody comes forward and tries to inform the masses of people, white and black, what's going on. Because you see, most people are selfish. They don't bother to think what's happening to their fellow man. Just so long as they're surviving, they don't care what happens to the next person. But I don't say that they're cruel, but they just don't stop to think about it. Just like you people. You don't stop to think about anything but getting a story, because that's your livelihood. You don't care where I'm being repressed or murdered, because that's not really on your mind. But once you stop to think about these things, you might be impressed to the fact that, say, we're all Americans, and these things that are happening to other Americans just possibly might happen to me. So in order to keep this thought from ever reaching any of the so-called good people, or the silent majority as they're termed, these things are conducted in a way as to make prejudice against, what's going on. They do this. They frame all these little lies in the prison. They keep people away from prisons. They build them way out somewhere where when you're poor like me, it takes you forever to get there. And if you get there, you've spent some money that you need to exist on in order to get there. First they tried to take your people away, keep him away. He's a political prisoner, even though he didn't believe, hadn't believed in socialism, if he hadn't believed in that, he would still be a political prisoner. Because in this country, the prisons are run by whatever political party's in. This year it happens to be Republicans, so Republicans are running it. Next year, if the Democrats get in, they'll appoint their special little murderers to do their job. So it's no difference.
Mr. Jackson,
Group in there that are Nazis. And this group, they call themselves Nazis. And this is the people who are hired, who are given special privileges by the guards to do their dirty work for them.
Mrs. Jackson, you...
Mrs. Jackson, I was wondering if you were in the Jackson studio show.
In that there is real trouble in his body that hadn't been something done to it.
Where is his body now?
He's buried in Mount Vernon, Illinois.
Mrs. Jackson, you have decided to take this to the UN. On what grounds are you going to approach this body? On the grounds of, there's certain things that...
Change. You say that nothing's happened so far. Now we've had
I think
Attica.
society has to change also. I think people such as your attitudes has to change towards people. You think because somebody's locked up in jail, they cease to be a human being. They're still human beings no matter where they are. And driving through New York is another example of inhumanity. The way people have to live, not live, exist from day in and day out, just like dogs. This society, this country is supposed to be the greatest country in the world. How can people who say they love this country and will die for this country can walk down and look in Harlem? They can go on Fillmore. They can go in Watts and every other ghetto in the United States and watch human beings live the way they have to live and say they love their country. To me, this is a reflection on the country, the way people have to exist day in and day out and be deprived of everything that any human being is supposed to have. Just because all through the years they have not been allowed to achieve anything. And I think it's time people stop passing the buck and stand up and realize what's wrong with this country, that a certain few people want it all, no matter how much it is, and the others have nothing. They don't even want you to have welfare to exist. In other words, they want all black people and poor white people to die. They don't even want us here. And when are you going to wake up to the fact that this is what really goes on and stop trying to whitewash it?
Has the United Nations given any idea that it would be sympathetic to your issue when you bring it before them?
We haven't approached the UN yet.
You went to see them in Cole, Taylor, Illinois. You've spoken about Attica and the massacre there, and you've spoken about Angela.
I don't think it's a black liberation struggle. I think it's every American's in this country struggle. I think we're all Americans. I'm not an African. I'm a descendant from Africa, but I'm an American. Why should I be treated differently than any other American? That's what's the trouble here now. People try to make this a racial issue. It's not. It's a human issue. It's another human being mistreated by another human being. And we're all Americans. So if one American can be treated right, why can't all of us? I don't hold any animosity towards people because they're white. I hold it because they're repressors. The one that represses me is the one I don't like.
Well, then on this level, people who are oppressed in general, you see their struggle reaching new unity from people on the East Coast in Attica and people on the West Coast.
Of course, anybody that's repressed should be united. They should be, but I don't know where they are or not. Everybody takes their own little sadness and hides with it, but I'm not hiding with mine. I want the people to know that I don't like what's been done to me, and I want everybody to know it. I want everybody to know that I've been sad and crying for 10 years for nothing.
Mrs. Jackson, there were indications that your attitudes are something
Now than there were then. I felt like if George needed help, that this great country and this great state that we lived in could help him. I went along with the state to try to help him. I had to find out for myself, just like you will have to find out for yourself, that they didn't want to help him. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to make him a bootlicking lackey like most other black people in the country. And he didn't desire to be like that.
You feel that your son was railroaded into prison by society?
I feel like that he didn't have a fair trial. I felt like that the lawyer stood there and sold him down the river because there was a witness said that he didn't take part in that particular thing. He didn't have anything to do with it. We had a witness, and he was white, and they wouldn't use him.
Mrs. Jackson, the officials.
And I took a plane and went to Oakland to try to find out what happened to my son. I called the prison, and I was told that nobody wanted to talk to me. I tried to get a hold of Warden Park, and I was also told nobody wanted to talk to me. The only way I got to talk to Warden Park is when I pretended I was a reporter from the Sun reporter, and he came to the phone. And when I asked him what happened to my son, I said, how did he get killed? What's wrong? Can I come out and talk to you? He says, no, I don't want to talk to you, and I don't want to see you. So I kept calling, and I told him I'd be out the next morning at 9 o'clock. And I wanted somebody to tell me what happened to my son. And I went to the prison the next morning, but they wouldn't let me in, but they let reporters in. So all I know about what happened to my son is what I read in the papers. Nobody has bothered to tell me anything, not even to notify me he was dead. And this went on for 2 or 3 days. And then finally, we tried to get the coroner to get his report on what happened to George. They refused to give us that. So we haven't heard anything from any official about George's death. The only thing we know is what we read in the newspaper. And I think this is wrong. I think when somebody's killed, I mean, after all, other people are notified when their people are killed. They don't have to read about it in the newspaper or hear it on the radio. And at least he could have talked to me and told me that he died. Even if it was a lie, he could have told it to me. And I think this is wrong for him to be treated like this. And when I went to get his possessions, all they gave me, they wouldn't even give these to me. They gave them to someone else. It was a little envelope about 6 by 8. It had 3 or 4 1960 check stubs in it, his 1960 driver's license, and a little chain or something he used to wear around his neck, an old watch from 1960. Nothing from 1960 to the present time. He had many photographs and books and letters from people in his cell, and none of these things they gave to me. They gave me no excuse except it's evidence. Now I don't see how his books, his pictures of us and other friends could be evidence, but these things still are refused to us. And I think this, since I can't get any consideration from them, somebody has to say something. And that's the reason why we were trying to get a petition together to go to the UN. And this petition, we feel, will not only help George, but help a lot of other people too. Because these things not only happen to him, they happen to everybody who happens to be unlucky enough to be locked up. Years, you'd have to be directly involved with going there for so long to really know what goes on. I mean, you can't go there, take a visit to go in for 20 minutes, because when you go in, they clean it up. Everything is nice when reporters or some organization goes in for a visit. It's very nice. Once a year, they even have Chamber of Commerce to-dos, affairs at the prisons. And this way, they can fool the public. They don't want the public to really know what goes on. But this murder, this harassment goes on every day of the year, except maybe when somebody from the public is there. They don't. My thoughts of George going to the youth authority is that somebody's going to try to help him if he needs help. But that was wrong. They don't try to help anybody when they take them in prison. They take them only to punish them. And in punishing them in this way, they either make them a idiot, they make them crawling on the ground, or in some instances, some people are strong enough not to become idiots. And I don't care what anybody says, my son was not a mad dog. he wasn't a mad dog killer, and that's what they couldn't stand. They couldn't stand that they had kept him there for 10 years and still hadn't made him what he wanted him to be. A lackey, a broken man, and somebody that they could just control, either that or a stool pigeon or an informer. That's all they try to make out of them. And in the prisons, when they go in, they have this program. It's not the program you think it is. It's a program where they have characters of what everybody who comes into prison should be. Such as they have some that they call queens. They have some that they call, I wish you could, some of you who are very interested could have been around and talked to somebody who's brave enough to tell you what really goes on inside the prison. Because when you go there, most of the inmates are afraid to say anything. Because for 8 or 9 years, George was afraid to even tell us everything that went on. And many times, there have been people there assigned to kill somebody else. But this is one thing I can say even about the Nazis. Most of them respected George. And the guards were never able to get any of them to set him up to be killed. That's the reason why he stayed alive so long. He was the person that mostly everybody in the prison respected. And I've talked to a lot of people who've been on the parole, both black and white. And they have told me the same thing. I have people's names right now that will be a witness for me if I had any place to take the evidence to. But I don't have any place to take it. So therefore, I can't put their name in jeopardy just to the general public. Back in 1970, when those 3 men were killed at Soledad, we were not informed about anything that went on. We didn't know that George was going to trial for this until it had been going for a month nearly. The only way we found out about it was the public defender called me on the phone and told me. Now, he had been writing letters out to tell us what was going on, but they kept these letters. I guess at one time we got about 9 letters that had been written over the past 3 or 4 weeks. And these letters told what had been going on. I got a letter from another inmate who told me that they were trying to frame George for the Soledad murder of this guard. And, to give somebody's name like that to the authorities as evidence, these people have to live in this prison day in and day out, and they are afraid for their lives. But I don't think that really that anybody can do anything about the prison system. I don't think that you people or I or anyone else can do anything until the people who have control, such as the governor and, well, maybe even the president or somebody like that, really wants the thing to change. We have all these rules. There's been 2 or 3 senators from California tried to make prison reform, but these rules and these changes get bogged down and stay there for 15 or 20 years, and nobody does anything about it. So in order for things to be changed, the powers that be has to change them, and we know they don't want them changed.
Mr. Johnson, what do you hope to do with that petition to the UN?
Well, we hope to get enough signatures to take it to the UN and convince the people